It's 94 days to Nigeria's 2023 elections, and the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has refused to direct the Independent National Electoral Commission to resume the continuous voters registration exercise ahead of the 2023 polls. The judge, INEC, in a judgment, said he could not make such an order with the 2023 general election just a few days to the statutory 90 days to the elections. The judge, however, declared that INEC is expected to continue voters' registration, updates and revision of voters' register until 90 days before the general election. Part of the judgment reads, quote, "It is a constitutional responsibility of the defendant, INEC, to make sure that every prospective Nigerian voter who have shown desire to register to vote are not deprived their civil right to register and participate in the forthcoming general elections." End of quote. Joining us now to shed more light on this issue is Liberus Oshoma, a legal practitioner. Thank you for joining us at this time, Mr. Oshoma. What is the reaction to the interpretation of this judgment?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's the position of the law that the court has pronounced. Yeah, while the law permits INEC to continue voters' registration, but also the law creates a caveat for INEC that voters' registration should cease at least 90 days to the election. And because if you look at prayer 1, 2, and 3, they were a declaration. Prayer 1 was a declaration that INEC, by virtue of the provisions of the Electoral Act, should continue voters' registration at least up to 90 days. And then prayer 3 was that INEC should be ordered. It was an order praying the court that INEC should be ordered to continue the voters' registration at least 90 days before the election. And the judge was of the view that if he grants the order today, that will mean that INEC will have just 5 days within which to comply with that order, because it's just about 95 days to the election. And so that order would have been granted in futility, because before INEC would actually deploy men and materials, 5 days would have lapsed. And so, yes, the judge agreed that by the provisions of the Constitution, INEC ought to have continued voters' registration, at least 90 days before the election. INEC should continue at least 90 days before the election, but that court cannot grant an order now because INEC has just about 90 days to the election.
Indeed,
that's
Mr.
a proper thing to
do. It is the date of the judgment that is deciding now, the clarification that the judge is actually given. But then, do you think INEC can actually afford to conduct a hatred poll complying with this directive?
That was the next point I was coming to, because INEC's prayer in court also was to the effect that they had to stop us at when they stopped, because they needed to ensure that the cards were ready for collection and voting before the election. INEC had consistently insisted that they do not have the technological power, the men and material, to continue voters' registration up until 90 days to the election. And what we should do at this stage is government should ensure that INEC is empowered technologically, materially, and otherwise to produce these cards, within the shores of Nigeria, so that as you are registering, people are collecting all the technology required to ensure that these cards are produced here and they are deployed for collection should be deployed to INEC and enhanced. Otherwise, we're going to have this problem of consistently, having to stop the process of registering voters at least months before the election. Mind you also, this is not just even the election. Immediately after the election now, the process of voters registration also ceases, because INEC had said that they do not have the materials until after a period, a window will be open, and then you have to go to the local government to do all of that. And in some cases, it's usually very cumbersome. So
all right, Mr. Shoma.
I think for us to continue this process, INEC should be enhanced to produce all of these cards here.
So where we stand now, would you say there's any need to amend the Electoral Act?
There is no need to amend the Electoral Act. Like I said, it is not lack of law that's our problem. It is the lack of the technological know-how to implement the existing law. The law is very fine, and it says INEC should ensure continuous registration at least until at least 90 days, which is the judge also agreed, which even the claimant in court also agreed that INEC ought to have continued registration up to at least 90 days before the election. But INEC says they are handicapped, and the judge says that there is not enough time if that order is granted today. So we need to cure the handicap now. That's what we need to cure. That handicap that should enable INEC to consistently register voters and ensure that these voters' cards are collected almost simultaneously as they are registered. It is not rocket science. So, but if we ensure that these materials and men are available, it will be a seamless process.
All right, then Liberus Shuma is a legal practitioner. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on TVC News at 10.
My pleasure. Thank you.